Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Grant Dawson to dominate Bobby Green. We're talking domination here. And I'm here to recap the full event, starting with Bobby Green and Grant Dawson, and then I will work my way down to JJ Aldrich and Montana De La Rosa, which will be the main event of this video. But let's start at the top with Bobby Green getting the finest moment of his career, in my opinion, and one of the best victories of his career, maybe the best, I don't know. You know, you need a bunch of context to really start ranking victories. He's coming off a win over Tony Ferguson on a 6-fight losing streak, and now he's beating Grant Dawson on an 8-fight winning streak, or unbeaten streak. So, regardless, this is one of the best victories of his career and easily the best moment. Bobby's a veteran, been around forever, so he's had plenty of moments. I guess it's the nature of being a veteran, but this is the finest moment because he had the spotlight on him, the extra bright spotlight of the main event, and he steamrolled Grant Dawson. And Grant Dawson's already beaten so many good fighters in the UFC where any sort of a victory over him has meaning, but to do it in 30 seconds is just extra special. Extra special. Bobby Green is, not typically a knockout force in the UFC. We've seen him get plenty of finishes, but that's only because he's been around for plenty of time. Here, he is the second guy to finish Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson does have 2 losses, and they both look very similar. They're both in 30 seconds, and he was rocked in both of them. Travis Brown elbows from the other guy that beat him, Hugh Pulley. And here in this one, it was I was about to call it a big left hand. It wasn't even that big. It's just a Bobby Green left hand right on the button, and he couldn't recover. So I have doubts about Grant Dawson moving forward, to be honest. Anytime you hear me talk about him in the future, it'll be, well, he's got 2 losses and they both look exactly the same. He was caught cold in 30 seconds. So I have doubts about him moving forward, but even if he moves forward and gets knocked out in 5 consecutive fights, that's not going to take away from the meaning here of this victory, because we have the context here in front of us now. He was on an 8-fight unbeaten streak in the UFC, coming off a dominant win over Damir Ismagulov, who is back to being underrated. That guy's an awesome fighter, and Grant Dawson's dominated everybody he's fought, aside from AoriQileng, kind of, even though he's still kind of dominant in that one. But he's been dominant, Grant Dawson, and he's finished just about everybody he's beaten as well. And even in the AoriQileng fight, he was very durable in round 3 when he was getting the shit kicked out of him. And he survived. So Grant Dawson had my respect, and going into this one, I thought this would look very similar to the other Bobby Green main event against Islam Makhachev, which was a makeshift main event. They did that one on short notice for whatever reason. But here, this was plan A, Bobby Green as the main event against Grant Dawson. And Bobby Green comes through and gets, again, the finest moment of his career as a professional fighter. And I love it when it happens. Again, he's had enough respect throughout the years. He is a veteran. But this is definitely the coolest Bobby Green moment. And again, he does so when the spotlight's on him. So fantastic. Really love the main event, despite losing money on it. And the prediction as well, because I really did think Grant Dawson was going to win. But I'm extra happy for Bobby Green. The veteran wins, I'm almost always happy. As for Grant Dawson, moving forward, he's got to, protect himself. He's got to have his own doubts in his chin. I think that would be the wise move, but he's still a young, healthy guy, and he's already dominated enough great fighters in the UFC where I'm still excited for his future. So, overall, I wanted to see more than 30 seconds, but if it was going to end in 30 seconds, I'm glad it's the veteran that gets it done. Bobby Green has his day. That brings me to Joe Pyfer and Abdulrazak Alhassan. Joe Pyfer looked really good in this fight. Really good. I thought he could have looked more dominant, but the fact that he wasn't so dominant made him look really good, in my opinion. I thought in the first minute of the fight, I forget what happened exactly, but I know maybe Abdul judo tossed him or whatever, or Pyfer tried to take him down and he got up. But I remember thinking, oh, he's in for a war here. He's not just going to steamroll Abdul Razak Alhassan. And I was wondering if he was going to fall apart, having to strike on the outside with such a dangerous guy. And instead, he looked really comfortable. I thought he definitely won round one. And he took over the fight. Ripped him to the mat, which was awesome seeing wrestling and grappling down the stretch, as he got more comfortable. And Joe Pyfer just increasingly looked better and took over the fight till the end of round two, where he got him in the arm triangle choke. Which that's what he tried to do right from the beginning. He tried to put him in an arm triangle choke. That's what it was. But that was standing. But anyway, he gets it done on the ground, which was really good for Joe Pyfer. I think he's got 10, 11 wins or whatever, but I know this is, I think, his third submission win. So cool for him to get a submission win in the UFC. And Abdul Razak Alhassan, look, he's pretty much known as a pure striker because he's so dangerous, but the guy is definitely a tough guy to submit. And he was submitted here. So it's the first time he's ever been tapped. So great win for Joe Pyfer. Really a great win. I know he didn't look like the dominant force he's looked like in the past, but he had a pretty tough guy here in Abdul Razak Alhassan, and he got it done. Took out seasoned fighter in round two after winning round one. So my estimation of Joe Pyfer goes up, definitely. And for Abdul Razak Alhassan, yeah, he's older, he's a little more limited, but yeah, this was a tough matchup against a physical monster, and eventually he was overwhelmed. He's as a fighter, he's always got that potential for a finish in round one, but then down the stretch, I don't know, he's less dangerous. Certainly he's only got that other knockout in round two over Claudio Ribeiro, and it was in like 30 seconds into round two. So his power and his danger was taken from him, and eventually the fight was taken from him. Joaquin Buckley looked awesome, a former opponent of Abdul Razak Alhassan. Joaquin Buckley looked awesome against Alex Morono. I thought it was a really close fight for the first couple of rounds, first two rounds. I thought it was really close, but I thought Buckley was winning every round just by a hair, and then in the end, it was a little more than a hair. I thought he had a 10-8 round in round three, which one judge gave him the 10-8 round, and he didn't have too many gigantic moments even, but it was just Morono slowing down, falling apart a little bit, and Buckley with that welterweight cardio. Now, sometimes I think the cut will hurt a fighter, especially when he's built like Buckley, but Buckley's looked really good at welterweight in 2 consecutive fights here against Fialho and Morono. And, I mean, he looked good in like a cardio sense. And Morono was giving him trouble. Morono's deceptively fast and deceptively powerful too, but Buckley, his chin held up first of all, as did Morono's, because both guys have been knocked out a few times, and but Buckley was faster, more powerful, and had a better work rate overall. Again, I thought he looked really good down the stretch. Great win for Joaquin Buckley, and for Morono, I think it's a good sign for his chin, but definitely a tough loss. Morono's had a good run as of late. The one loss to Ponzinibbio was the only blemish in the last few years, and that was a fight that he was definitely winning. But here, he was definitely losing this one. And it would have taken the judges in the Vanessa Demopoulos fight to get him a victory here. Because, yeah, he was clearly outpointed. 30-26 Buckley. Morono looked tough, but Buckley, the story of this fight is Buckley looked incredible, and I'm excited for him at welterweight. Drew Dober and Ricky Glenn. Drew Dober, he's just so fucking powerful that if there's any sort of weakness to your chin, you're in trouble. And that's what I saw here. Ricky Glenn is just a guy who's been very, very tough, but he fights so infrequently. And the last time we've seen him fight, he was knocked out. It's the first time he was ever knocked out, and it didn't look good. Like I said in the pre-fight, they both were knocked out in their last fights. But the Ricky Glenn one didn't look good. He looked shaky, certainly. And here, he looked shaky as well. He didn't go down immediately like he did in the Yagos fight. But Drew Dober hurt him before long and then kept him hurt for the next minute and put him away. Drew Dober hits too hard for anybody who's got any sort of a weakness going on in his chin. And for Ricky Glenn, look, that's only 2 TKO losses, but they come in consecutive fights, and they come in his last 2 fights. So things, I think, have taken a turn for Ricky Glenn as a fighter. And for Drew Dober, he, I'm sure, will invite more danger to his chin because of the way he fights. But he is just so fucking dangerous, powerful, and fast, where the upside is always there for him to throw down. He's just a technical brawler, but very technical. And Drew Dober, that left hand is money, and he got a victory here. Money. What am I, fucking swingers here? That brings me to Bill Algeo and Alexander Hernandez. This was a fun fight, but I thought Algeo was just a step ahead. I thought Hernandez was going to find success either wrestling or coming out of the gate on fire like he usually does. And Bill Algeo was able to neutralize him with his range, and he took round 1. And once he took round 1, I said, I think this fight's over. And I think Algeo won anyway. I thought Algeo had a good chance of getting a finish down the stretch, but Hernandez looked strong. I think Algeo is just a little less dangerous and imposing than some of the guys that have put away Hernandez, like Drew Dober and even Billy Quarantillo. But much like Quarantillo, Algeo is a workhorse who typically wins down the stretch. And here I thought he won all 3 rounds pretty comfortably. Hernandez looked tough, but definitely not a physical force. He should have been imposing himself in one way or another on Algeo. Just, being the guy that was comfortably fighting at lightweight. And here, he wasn't able to get through Algeo. I thought his best course would have been taking him down. And Algeo is a really tough fighter in every sense and a versatile guy. Not easy to dominate anywhere. So this was a kickboxing bout, and Algeo was better. Algeo won clearly, and don't mess with Bill or Stevie the Cat. Right, Stevie? And that brings me to Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Diana Belbita. You got to make everything about you, huh? And Karolina looked awesome in this fight. This was another fight, kind of like Algeo versus Hernandez. I thought it was close enough, but I did think that Karolina won all 3 rounds. I thought she won all 3 rounds. I thought she looked really good. I think, Diana Belbita, she's a good enough striker, but she's not dominant. And Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I thought it would be an interesting stand-up battle. I thought Karolina would be better on the ground. And Karolina proved she could hang with her, and I thought she was roughing her up. Karolina's a really well-versed fighter. Nobody at 115 female fighter is that imposing, and neither is Karolina. My cat's throwing me off here. But either way, great win for Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who is now on a 4-fight winning streak. Just incredible. I know it's not 4 wins that are going to get you to a title, even though her last win, Vanessa Demopoulos, she got a win last night, which I'll get to in a second or two. But Karolina is on a 4-fight winning streak, and she has a lot of momentum at whatever she is, 37 or something, and who knows? She could be, I don't even want to say it, a win away from a title shot. I don't know. She's probably a few wins away or whatever, but she's a girl who's got a high enough profile, a lot of history, and it's awesome seeing a fighter like that have a good run in what I'm thinking is the final act of her career. And by act, I mean, I don't know, a few years or whatever. But a great win for Karolina. For Diana Belbita, she hung tough, made it close enough, but she didn't have enough. And in the end, I thought she should have been more aggressive. But I still thought Karolina was able to win round 3. Nate Maness takes out Mateus Mendoca. This was an awesome win for Nate Maness. Maness coming through big as an underdog, pretty big underdog, and he's a guy that has had a tough few fights as of late. He's got had two consecutive losses, but they are to Tagir Ulanbekov, who guillotined him, and Umar Nurmagomedov, who dominated him. But those are two very good fighters, established fighters. Mendoca is not established. He had that one good fight against Javid Basharat, and like I said, his best win is Pedro Nobre, and his one loss to Javid Basharat, he looked tough in, but he was largely dominated, especially towards the end. And here he fought a guy, Nate Maness, who had a lot of different factors, with the weight and everything coming into this fight. But Nate Maness looked good and was able to pounce on an opportunity where Mendoca got too aggressive, trying to look for a leg lock. And we've seen that cost fighters, even in the last year or so. I feel like we've seen it a good 5 times or so, and this was just another example of that. And he was overwhelmed, caught positionally, and then in too deep where he couldn't make anything happen or even escape. And Nate Maness, being the big bantamweight, or flyweight now, but the bigger guy, he sat on him and pounded him out. Great win for Nate Maness. Nate, he's a guy who had a lot of momentum before those 2 losses, and now he gets another big win that hopefully will age well. But regardless, it's another finish in the UFC. This guy's put away everybody but Johnny Munoz. And Nate looked really good here and schooled the youngster, tamed him, and did an inside of round. I thought that's how the fight could have looked, but I thought it would have looked that way in rounds 2 or 3, not in 3-4 minutes or whatever. So excellent win for Nate Maness. Got cat fur in my nose. That brings me to Vanessa Demopoulos versus Kanako Murata. I just wrote down, what the fuck? Look, I like when fighters are rewarded for effort to finish. That used to be the top criterion in Pride. Just effort to finish, because that, just breeds exciting fights. But we, in the realm we're in, which I can't even recite the rules, the 10-point must system and whatever, but I just know in the realm we're in, she shouldn't have won that fight, okay? She shouldn't have won. She definitely lost that fight, and she lost it on wrestling alone and top position and gravity and all that horse shit. I'm really glad she won, again, because I like Vanessa Demopoulos, and she's the older fighter who's had an up-and-down UFC career, and she was the underdog here. And I'm happy to see her win, but she shouldn't have won that fight. I feel like Murata was definitely robbed. I'm not somebody who throws around the word robbery a lot. You know that if you've seen my videos. I feel like I've given that speech a lot, so maybe I do use the word robbery a lot. I don't know. But either way, even Stevie the Cat thought that was a fucking robbery. Murata definitely won that fight, and it was taken from her. But Vanessa Demopoulos did what she needed to do. She hung in tough, much more active, on the ground and even on the feet. I thought, especially early on, she was roughing her up, some knees to the body. I thought she can get a TKO here in round 1. But she looked really good, just she still lost, in my opinion. Even if it's a matter of gravity and top position, I think they got that one wrong. So, it is what it is. Tough loss for Murata. But, whatever. Interesting win for Vanessa Demopoulos. AoriQileng beats Johnny Munoz Jr. This was a fight in which Johnny Munoz Jr. was able to get his grappling going early. Had a lot of success early on, but wasn't able to secure the finish, and he fell apart down the stretch. Johnny Munoz Jr., he's a guy that I have overrated. I have overrated Johnny Munoz Jr., picked him in most of his fights. Really respected his wrestling and his grappling. And I do respect a lot about him. I think he's tougher than I gave him credit for, because I've been a little suspicious of his durability. But everything else I've overrated. This guy is not as good of a wrestler or even grappler as I've given him credit for. And specifically, I have doubts about his cardio, and his ability to implement his grappling down the stretch. And he just wasn't able to do that. And AoriQileng was bigger, stronger. I know Johnny Munoz, I think, had like 2 inches on him, but I was watching that fight going, I think AoriQileng is taller, like 5 inches taller. He just looked gigantic. But he was a big, strong guy, difficult to wrangle, and he held up. His takedown defense held up. Johnny Munoz Jr. had his hands locked a few times throughout the last few rounds, and he may have even gotten him down, but I know AoriQileng didn't let it become a grappling match. He kept the fight standing in general, getting back up or whatever he needed to do, and he was much better on the feet. And in the end, Johnny Munoz Jr. was reduced to butt-scooting jiu-jitsu guy. So, he took away the wrestling very clearly. Great win for AoriQileng, and for Johnny Munoz Jr., yeah, he's tough, but, definitely limited as a fighter. That brings me to J.J. Aldrich versus Montana De La Rosa. This was a fight kind of like Johnny Munoz Jr. and AoriQileng, where it was going to come down to the wrestling. And I thought Montana would be able to win the wrestling battle. And in the end, there wasn't a wrestling battle. I think in round 3, there was a wrestling battle, and her takedown was defended. But I don't even know if she shot takedowns in the first 2 rounds. But like they said in the commentary, they said she trained with J.J. Aldrich, and J.J. Aldrich had intimated to D.C. in the fighter meeting that she had confidence in defending takedowns from Montana De La Rosa through their training session, which is information I was not privy to. As my cat takes a shit on me. I think that would have been valuable information, but regardless, the training is training, and Montana is a crafty enough fighter where I thought she would be able to get her down, and she wasn't able to do that. I think she knew she'd have trouble just based on the fact that she wasn't even attempting to take her down, and on the feet, she was definitely going to lose a kickboxing battle. She made it close enough. She's athletic and bigger, and, she has some nice well-timed blitzes and whatever. But in general, anytime she got into range, J.J. Aldrich was dictating things with her hands. Aldrich had sharper hands, faster and more powerful, in my opinion. And in the end, she ended up producing some nice damage, busting her face up, and I thought she definitely won the fight. It was another one of those fights like whatever one I mentioned before, where I did think she won all 3 rounds, J.J. Aldrich, certainly round 3, but it was still close for the first 2 rounds. It was kind of like Buckley versus Morono. That's what the fight really reminded me of. But yeah, no takedown attempts, pure boxing bout, kickboxing, and the boxing of J.J. Aldrich won the fight. She's looked really good in the past, neutralizing another similar fighter in Jillian Robertson. But Jillian, even though she's getting stronger now and whatever, she's much more of a pure technician. Montana's very technical as well, but, I thought she would have had more of an athletic advantage. And she may have, but she wasn't able to make much of it. As my cat flips out here. So, alright. She's fucking biting my notes. So that pretty much wraps it up here, as I clearly have a cat who's got some fucking behavioral issues. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, all that horseshit, and check out my other videos.